The darkness of space held many secrets, but none as lonely as Dak. For 3,000 years, he had lived alone among the cold rocks that floated in the outer rim of the galaxy. His massive form stretched across several asteroids like a living mountain of dark scales and ancient bone. Dak was not like the small creatures that flew between stars in their metal ships. He was a Vorthak. His people had once ruled the galaxy with wisdom and power, but now he was the last, the only one left behind when his kind had vanished into the deep mysteries of space and time. Every day was the same for Dake. He would wake as the distant sun cast weak light across the asteroid field. He would stretch his great wings that could wrap around a small moon. He would hunt for the crystal formations that grew in the rocks. These crystals were his food. They tasted of starlight and ancient memories. But mostly Dak was bored. 3,000 years of the same routine had made him tired. He remembered when ships would sometimes pass through his territory. The small beings inside would see his massive eye watching them, and they would scream. They would fire their tiny weapons at him, or run away as fast as their engines could carry them. The Altarian Council had marked his location on all their star maps. Big red warnings that said cosmic threat and avoid at all costs. The warrior race called the Hexari would not even send their bravest soldiers near his home. To the galaxy, Dake was not a person with feelings. He was a monster to be feared. This made Dak very sad. He did not want to be feared. He wanted friends. He wanted someone to talk to about the long years and the things he had seen. But every time he tried to approach other beings, they would run away or attack him. So Dak had learned to hide. He would curl his massive body around the largest asteroid and pretend to be just another rock floating in space. His dark scales helped him blend with the shadows between stars. Sometimes he would sleep for months at a time just to make the loneliness hurt less. On this particular day, something different happened. A small ship came limping into his territory. It was not like the big trading vessels or military ships that usually passed by. This ship was tiny and old. Smoke was coming from its engines, and it was moving very slowly. Dak opened one enormous eye to watch. The ship had writing on its side that he could read. Soul's Dream, it said, in the simple letters that the humans used. Humans were one of the newer races in the galaxy. Dake had seen their ships before, but they were usually too scared to stay long. The little ship was in trouble. Its engines were making bad sounds and sparks were flying from damaged parts. Dak watched as it came to rest on a large asteroid not far from where he was hiding. The ship's landing was rough, and more smoke began to pour out. A door opened on the side of the ship. A figure in a spacesuit climbed out. Dak could tell it was human by the way it moved. The human looked around at the damage to his ship and then began pulling tools from a storage compartment. Dak was curious. Most beings who ended up in his territory would send distress signals right away. They would call for rescue ships to come get them as fast as possible. But this human was different. He was not calling for help. He was trying to fix his ship by himself. The human worked for several hours. He crawled under the ship and took apart pieces of the engine. He tested wires and replaced broken parts. Dak found himself fascinated by the determination he saw. This small creature was not giving up even though his situation looked hopeless. As the human worked, Dak slowly moved closer. He was very careful to stay hidden behind the bigger asteroids. His massive form could move surprisingly quietly when he wanted to. He had learned this skill from centuries of trying not to scare other beings, but as Dak moved to get a better view, something went wrong. His tail brushed against a small asteroid and sent it spinning into space. The sound echoed through the thin atmosphere of the asteroid field. The human stopped working and looked up. His helmet light swept across the rocks, searching for what had made the noise. The light beam moved closer and closer to where Dake was trying to hide. Then it happened. The light found Dake's eye. The human froze. He was staring directly at an eye that was larger than his entire ship. An eye that belonged to something so big it defied understanding. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Dak waited for the screaming to start. He waited for the human to run back to his ship and try to escape. He had seen this reaction so many times before, but the human did not scream. He did not run. He just stood there, looking at Dake's eye with what seemed like curiosity rather than fear. Finally, the human spoke. His voice came through the radio systems that all space travelers used. "Well," he said in a calm voice, "that explains why no one comes to this part of space." Dak was so surprised he almost forgot to breathe. This tiny creature was talking to him like they were having a normal conversation. "I am sorry," Dak said carefully. His voice was so deep it made the asteroids vibrate. "I did not mean to frighten you." The human tilted his head. "Are you going to eat me?" he asked. "I do not eat beings like you," Dak replied. "I eat crystals." "Good to know," the human said. Then he did something that shocked Dak completely. He went back to working on his ship. "I don't suppose you know anything about quantum drive engines," the human called out. Dak stared in amazement. In 3,000 years of loneliness, no one had ever asked him for help with anything. No one had ever treated him like a normal person who might know useful things. "I might know a little," Dak said slowly. His ancient mind held knowledge of technologies that were old when the galaxy was young. The human stopped working again and looked up at the massive eye watching him. "My name is Hyun," he said, "and I could really use that help if you don't mind sharing it." For the first time in 3,000 years, Dak felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. "My name is Dake," he rumbled, "and I would be happy to help. You, Hyun?" As the distant stars watched in silence, the loneliest being in the galaxy began the first real conversation he had enjoyed in millennia. Neither Dak nor Hyun knew that this simple moment of kindness would soon send shockwaves across every corner of civilized space. But for now, there was just an ancient dragon and a determined human working together to fix a broken ship in the quiet darkness between the stars. 3 weeks had passed since Hyun first met Dake among the floating rocks of the outer rim. What started as a simple engine repair had become something neither of them expected: a friendship. Every morning, Hyun would climb out of his small ship and greet the massive dragon who had become his companion. Dak would carefully position his enormous head near the asteroid where Hyun worked so they could talk while the human fixed his damaged vessel. "Tell me more about Earth," Dak would ask. As his deep voice made the rocks around them vibrate gently, Hyun would smile inside his helmet and share stories of his home world. He told Dak about blue skies and green forests, about cities that reached toward the stars and oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. He described rain falling on summer days and snow covering mountains in winter. "It sounds beautiful," Dak would say with longing in his ancient voice. My people's world was much different. All crystal formations and floating islands of pure energy. In return, Dake shared memories of the old days. He told Hyun about the time when the Vorthak had traveled between galaxies as easily as Hyun might walk between rooms. He described technologies that could move stars and create new worlds from cosmic dust. "But we were always alone," Dak explained as he used one massive claw to carefully hold a broken engine part while Hyun welded it. "We were too powerful. Other beings feared us. We tried to help them, but they saw only danger." Hyun paused in his work. "Maybe they just didn't understand you," he said. "Fear makes people do stupid things." This was exactly what Dak needed to hear. For 3,000 years, he had wondered if his people had been monsters, if they deserved to be feared and avoided. But Hyun saw something different. Hyun saw a lonely being who wanted friendship. As the days passed, Hyun began to understand just how advanced Dak's knowledge was. The ancient dragon knew secrets of engineering that human science was centuries away from discovering. When Hyun struggled with a particularly difficult repair, Dak would gently suggest improvements. "Try routing the quantum flow through this pathway instead," Dak would rumble while pointing with a claw that was larger than Hyun's entire body. The suggestions always worked perfectly. Hyun found himself learning more in 3 weeks than he had in years of formal education. His broken ship was not just being repaired. It was being upgraded with techniques that should not have existed. On the 20th day, Hyun made a decision that would change everything. He activated his ship's communication system and sent a message back to human space. "Captain Yoon, this is Engineer Hyun requesting extended leave for additional repairs," he transmitted to his commanding officer. The response came back quickly. "Hyun, you were supposed to return 2 weeks ago. What is your status?" Hyun looked up at Dek, who was watching him with curious eyes, each the size of a small building. How could he explain this situation without causing panic? "I have encountered a being who is teaching me advanced engineering techniques," Hyun said carefully. "The knowledge could benefit all of humanity. Request permission to continue learning." There was a long silence from the other end of the communication. Finally, Captain Yoon's voice came through with barely controlled worry. "Hyun, what kind of being are you talking about? Are you in danger?" "Negative, Captain. I am completely safe. The being is friendly and highly intelligent. I believe this could be the most important first contact in human history." Another long pause. Then Captain Yoon's voice returned with the tone she used when giving orders that could not be questioned. "Hyun, you will transmit full details of your situation immediately. Command needs to know exactly what we are dealing with." Hyun looked up at Dak again. The massive dragon had heard every word of the conversation. His ancient eyes held understanding and perhaps a little sadness. "It is all right, Hyun," Dak said gently. "Your people deserve to know the truth. I am tired of hiding." So Hyun told them everything. He described finding the enormous dragon living alone among the asteroids. He explained how Dak had helped repair his ship and taught him impossible technologies. He transmitted data showing the improvements that had been made to his vessel. The reaction was immediate and intense. Within hours, Hyun's communication system was flooded with messages from military commanders and government officials. Everyone wanted to know about the being that humans had nicknamed the Void Dragon. Admiral Tae of the Human Defense Force was the first to reach them with a direct transmission. Her voice was tight with concern and barely controlled fear. "Engineer Hyun, you are ordered to return to human space immediately. You are in contact with a Class 5 cosmic threat. Every civilization in the galaxy has warnings about this creature." Hyun felt anger rise in his chest. "Admiral, with respect, this creature has a name. His name is Dake, and he has shown me nothing but kindness and friendship." Hyun. "That thing could destroy entire star systems," Admiral Tae replied. "It is not safe for you to remain there." Before Hyun could respond, Dake's voice filled the communication channel. The dragon had connected directly to the transmission using technologies that human science could not explain. "Admiral Tae, I mean no harm to your people or to Hyun," Dake said. His voice was calm and dignified. "I have lived in isolation for 3,000 years because I do not wish to cause fear. But Hyun has shown me something I had forgotten. The possibility of friendship without conditions." The silence that followed was deafening. Every human listening to the transmission was hearing the voice of a being that their entire civilization had been taught to fear. "You are the Void Dragon," Admiral Tae whispered. "I am Dak," the ancient being corrected gently, "and I am very tired of being alone." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, other civilizations were detecting the unusual energy signatures coming from the outer rim. Ancient monitoring systems that had been quiet for millennia were suddenly active again. The Altarian Council called emergency sessions. The HFY Empire mobilized scout fleets. Something was happening in the empty spaces between stars. Something that involved the creature every civilization feared most and the newest species to achieve interstellar flight. Ambassador Nari of the Human Diplomatic Corps found herself facing the most challenging situation of her career. How do you explain to a galaxy full of terrified aliens that your people have made friends with their greatest nightmare? This could destabilize the entire galactic political structure, she muttered as she prepared for emergency sessions with representatives from dozens of worlds. But back in the asteroid field, Hyun and Dak continued their conversations. Neither of them fully understood the storm of fear and confusion their friendship was creating across civilized space. "Do you regret meeting me?" Dak asked as they watched Hyun's improved ship run through system tests that produced impossible readings. Hyun looked up at his enormous friend and smiled. "Dak, meeting you is the best thing that ever happened to me. Whatever comes next, we will face it together." The ancient dragon felt warmth spread through his massive heart. After 3,000 years of loneliness, someone finally called him friend. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive circular hall, but none of them were sitting calmly in their designated seats. Instead, they clustered in worried groups, speaking in hushed, urgent voices about the crisis that was spreading through civilized space. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Nari, trying to maintain her diplomatic composure while facing the most hostile audience of her career. The elegant human woman had represented Earth in galactic politics for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this situation. "The human government maintains that Engineer Hyun is in no danger," she said for the third time that day. "The being known as Dake has shown no hostile intentions toward any human personnel." A thunderous roar of disagreement filled the chamber. The Altarian Council representative, a tall, blue-skinned being with silver eyes, raised his 4 arms for silence. "Ambassador Nari," he said in the melodic voice his people were known for, "your species clearly does not understand the magnitude of this threat. The creature you call Dek has been classified as a cosmic-level extinction risk for over 2,000 years. Based on what evidence?" Nari shot back. "Has this being actually harmed anyone in all that time?" The question created an uncomfortable silence. The truth was that while every civilization feared the Void Dragon, none of them could point to any recent acts of destruction. The fear was based on ancient legends and the simple fact that something so massive and powerful could not be trusted. Admiral Tay sat in the human section of the chamber, monitoring communications from the outer rim. Every few hours she received updates from Hyun, who seemed completely oblivious to the panic his friendship was causing across the galaxy. "Admiral," her communication officer whispered urgently, "we are receiving massive energy readings from the outer rim. Whatever that creature is doing, the power levels are off our measurement scales." Before Admiral Tay could respond, a new voice filled the chamber. It came from the central communication array and spoke with a depth that made the floor vibrate. "Under everyone's feet. Honorable members of the Galactic Council," the voice said with formal politeness. "I am Dak. I believe you have been discussing me." Panic erupted instantly. Half the representatives fled toward the emergency exits. Others activated personal defense shields or called for their security details. The HFY Empire delegate actually drew his plasma weapon before realizing how useless it would be against a creature the size of a small moon. "Please do not be afraid," Dak continued as his voice easily carried over the chaos. "I come to speak, not to threaten. I wish to address the concerns you have about my friendship with the human known as Hyun." The chamber's emergency lockdown systems activated automatically. Blast shields covered the windows and military vessels were scrambled to defend the station. But Dak made no aggressive moves. His massive form hung in space near the station like a living mountain waiting patiently to be heard. Ambassador Nari stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "The Galactic Council recognizes your request to address this assembly," she said formally. "You may proceed." A collective gasp filled the chamber. No one had expected the human representative to actually engage with the cosmic threat. "Thank you, Ambassador Nari," Dak replied. "I have lived in isolation for 3,000 years because I understand the fear my presence causes. But in all that time I have harmed no one. I have threatened no civilization. I have simply existed alone among the cold rocks of space." His words carried a deep sadness that even the most frightened representatives could not ignore. "Then the human Hyun found me," Dak continued. "He was not afraid. He did not run or attack. He simply asked for help repairing his ship. In 3 weeks of conversation, he showed me something I had forgotten in 3 millennia of loneliness. He showed me friendship." The Altarian representative stepped forward, his silver eyes gleaming with suspicion. "What do you want from us, creature? Why reveal yourself now?" "I want nothing," Dak replied simply. "But I have learned that my friendship with Hyun has caused fear throughout the galaxy. I have learned that some among you consider humans dangerous. Because they can approach me without terror, this troubles me greatly." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. If humans could somehow communicate with the Void Dragon, what did that mean for the established order of galactic civilization? "Humans are not dangerous because they befriended me," Dak said, as if reading their thoughts. "They are remarkable because they see potential for friendship where others see only reasons for fear. Perhaps you should ask yourselves why your first instinct is always to be afraid, rather than to understand." His words hit the assembly like a physical blow. For centuries, the established powers had maintained order through careful balances of fear and mutual assured destruction. The idea that there might be another way was both appealing and terrifying. Dr. Mina, a human xenoarchaeologist who had been studying energy readings from across the galaxy, stood up in the observer section. "Council members, I have detected unusual activation patterns in ancient sites throughout galactic space. Installations that have been dormant for millennia are suddenly showing power signatures." The news sent another wave of panic through the chamber. Ancient installations meant ancient technologies that no one understood or controlled. The activation patterns all began when engineer Hyun first made contact with Dek. Dr. Mina continued. "I believe we are witnessing the awakening of some kind of network that has been sleeping for thousands of years." The Hexari Empire delegate finally found his voice. "This proves the danger," he snarled. "The creature's emergence is triggering unknown ancient weapons. We must act before it is too late." "They are not weapons," Dak said quietly. "They are something far more important. But that is a conversation for another time." The cryptic words only increased the tension in the chamber. What could be more important than weapons to a being of such immense power? Admiral Tay received another urgent communication from her intelligence officers. "Admiral, multiple Hexari battle fleets are moving toward human space. It appears they intend to prevent us from accessing whatever these ancient installations represent." The situation was spiraling out of control faster than anyone had anticipated. Fear of the unknown was driving the galaxy's most aggressive civilizations toward military action. "I did not come here to cause war," Dak said, his massive voice filled with regret. "I came because I hoped that if you could see me as Hyun does, you might understand that not all powerful things are evil. Not all ancient things are threats." Ambassador Nari felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The decisions made in the next few hours would determine whether humanity's first contact with Dak led to a new age of understanding, or a galactic war. "The human government requests time to study these developments," she said formally. "We propose a temporary cessation of all military movements while diplomatic solutions are explored." The Hexari delegate laughed harshly. "Diplomacy with a cosmic extinction event is the height of human foolishness. Some threats must be eliminated before they can act." And that attitude, Dak replied with ancient sadness in his voice, "is exactly why my people chose to leave this galaxy behind. You fear what you do not understand, and seek to destroy what you cannot control." The great dragon's form began to fade from the sensors as he prepared to depart the council station. "I will return to my home in the Outer Rim," he announced. "But know this, council members. The galaxy is about to change whether you embrace that change or fight against it. I hope for the sake of all your peoples that you choose wisdom over fear." As Dak disappeared into the void, the chamber erupted into arguments and accusations. Some species called for immediate military action against human space. Others demanded more information about the ancient installations that were awakening across the galaxy. But in the quiet spaces between the shouting Ambassador Nari and Admiral Tay exchanged worried glances. They both knew that the friendship between one lonely dragon and one curious human had just pushed galactic civilization to the brink of its greatest crisis in 1,000 years. The question now was whether anyone would survive what came next. Dr. Mina stood before the largest holographic display in the human research station, staring at data that challenged everything she thought she knew about galactic history. Across the three-dimensional map of known space, dozens of ancient sites were lighting up like stars being born. "The pattern is undeniable," she said to the assembled team of scientists and military advisors. "Every single Vorthak installation we have ever discovered is now active. Sites on 43 different worlds, all responding to some kind of signal." Captain Yoon leaned forward, studying the display with the intense focus that had made her one of humanity's most respected ship commanders. "Doctor, how long have these sites been dormant?" "Conservative estimates suggest at least 3,000 years, Dr. Mina replied. "Some of them may have been inactive for much longer. We have records of expeditions finding these ruins completely lifeless for centuries." Admiral Tay joined the conversation from her command ship via holographic projection. "The timing cannot be coincidental. These activations began precisely when Engineer Hyun first encountered Dak. There has to be a connection." Meanwhile, in the asteroid field where this crisis had begun, Han was having his own revelations. Dak had grown more thoughtful and distant since his appearance at the Galactic Council. The ancient dragon would spend hours staring into deep space, as if listening to voices only he could hear. "Dak, what is happening?" Hyun asked as he performed final checks on his now impossibly advanced ship. "The whole galaxy is going crazy over our friendship, but you seem to be expecting something." The massive dragon turned one enormous eye toward his human friend. For the first time since they had met, Hyun saw something that looked like uncertainty in that ancient gaze. "Hyun, I have not been completely honest with you," Dak said slowly. "My people did not simply vanish from this galaxy. They left deliberately, and they left something behind." "What kind of something?" Hyun asked, though he was not entirely sure he wanted to know the answer. Dak was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of millennia of hidden knowledge. "A test," he said finally. "My people spent thousands of years searching this galaxy for a species that could be trusted with great power, a species that would choose cooperation over conquest, friendship over fear." Hyun felt a chill run through him despite the warmth of his environmental suit. "And they never found one?" "Not until now," Dak replied. "Every species we encountered sought to use our knowledge for their own advantage. They wanted our technology to make themselves stronger than their enemies. They saw power as a tool for domination. But humans are different," Hyun said, though it sounded more like a question than a statement. "You are different," Dak corrected gently. "When you found me, you did not ask how you could use my power. You simply asked for help repairing your ship. When I offered to teach you advanced engineering, you were grateful, but you never demanded more. You treated me as a friend, not as a resource to be exploited." The dragon's massive head moved closer to the asteroid where Hyun stood. "My people built a network across this galaxy before they departed. A system designed to unite all civilizations against threats that come from beyond our borders. But the network would only activate for a species proven worthy of that responsibility. Hyun stared up at his enormous friend as the implications crashed over him like a tidal wave. The ancient installations that are waking up across the galaxy. That's your people's network. Yes, Dak said simply. And humanity is the key that unlocked it. Back at the Human Research Station, Dr. Mina was making discoveries that confirmed Dak's revelations. Deep scans of the activated installations were revealing technology beyond anything known to exist in the galaxy. These are not just archaeological sites, she announced to her team. They are sophisticated communication and coordination hubs. The network they form could allow instant contact between any points in the galaxy. Scientist Jay looked up from his analysis station with wide eyes. Doctor, if this technology fell into the wrong hands, it could allow any civilization to coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously. The terrifying possibility was not lost on anyone in the room. No wonder the established powers were mobilizing their fleets. Control of such a network would mean control of galactic civilization itself. Captain Yoon activated her communication system to contact the Outer Rim. Engineer Hyun, we need to speak with Dake immediately. The situation is escalating beyond what any of us anticipated. When the connection was established, Hyun's voice came through clearly, along with the deeper tones of the ancient dragon. Captain, we have been monitoring your communications. Dak says he is ready to explain everything. The network my people left behind is not a weapon. Dak began without preamble. It is a warning system and a coordination tool designed to prepare this galaxy for a specific threat. Admiral Tay joined the conversation from her command ship. What kind of threat requires galactic coordination to face? Dak's response sent chills through every human listening. My people detected the approach of an extragalactic invasion force, ships from beyond the edge of known space carrying beings that seek to consume entire galaxies. They are still decades away, but they are coming. The silence that followed was deafening. An invasion from outside the galaxy was beyond anything any civilization had prepared for. Why didn't your people stay to fight? Captain Yoon asked. Because we learned that raw power alone cannot defeat this enemy, Dak replied sadly. They have destroyed galaxies before. Galaxies filled with species as powerful as the Vorthak. The only defense is perfect coordination between all civilizations. Unity without domination. Cooperation without conquest. Dr. Mina spoke up from her research station. So your people left this network as a gift to whoever could prove themselves worthy of using it properly. Exactly, Dak confirmed. And in 3,000 years of testing, humanity is the first species to approach me seeking friendship rather than power. The first to show that cooperation is possible. But even as the humans absorbed this revelation, reports were coming in of massive military buildups across the galaxy. The Hexari Empire had mobilized 3 full battle fleets and was moving toward human space. The Altarian Council was split between those who wanted to study the situation and those who demanded immediate military action. We are running out of time, Admiral Tay observed grimly. Fear is driving the galaxy toward war before we can explain what is really happening. Then we must show them, Dak said with ancient determination in his voice. Hyun, I need you to return to human space and help your people access the network. The installations will respond to human presence now that the connection has been established. What about you? Hyun asked with concern for his friend. I will try to prevent the Hexari fleets from reaching human space, Dak replied. My people may have left this galaxy, but I am still here, and I will not allow fear to destroy the first chance for true galactic unity in 3 millennia. As Hyun prepared his enhanced ship for the journey back to human space, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. A simple Act of friendship had awakened an ancient network that could either save the galaxy or destroy it, depending on whether civilized beings could overcome their fear of the unknown. "Dak," he said, as he prepared to depart, "thank you for trusting humanity with this responsibility." The ancient dragon's voice followed him as he activated his ship's impossible new engines. "Thank you for showing me that friendship is still possible in this galaxy, Hyun. Now go and help your people prove that they are worthy of the gift my people left behind." As Hyun's ship disappeared into hyperspace carrying data that would revolutionize human understanding of their place in the galaxy, Dak turned his massive form toward the approaching Hexari fleets. The lonely giant who had spent 3,000 years in isolation was about to remind the galaxy why his people had once been feared across the stars. General Day stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the tactical display with growing concern. 3 Hexari battle fleets were approaching the outer edges of human space, and their intentions were clearly hostile. Hundreds of ships, bristling with weapons, advanced in perfect military formation toward the colonies that humanity had worked so hard to establish. "General, we are receiving surrender demands from the Hexari fleet commander," his communications officer reported. "They want us to turn over all data related to the ancient installations and surrender engineer Hyun for interrogation." "Tell them that humanity does not surrender its people to anyone," General Day replied firmly. "Prepare all defensive fleets for engagement, but do not fire first. We need to buy time for our people to understand what we are dealing with." Across human space, the awakened Vorthak installations were revealing their secrets to teams of scientists and engineers. Dr. Mina coordinated research efforts from the primary facility on humanity's capital world, while scientist Jay worked directly with the alien technology. "The network is responding to human neural patterns," Jay reported excitedly. "It actually wants to interface with us. The technology is designed to amplify cooperative thought processes while filtering out aggressive impulses." "Can we use it to coordinate our defense?" Dr. Mina asked as she monitored reports of the approaching Hexari fleets. "Possibly," Jay replied. "But the system seems to be designed for something much larger in scope. This is not just a military network. It is meant to coordinate entire civilizations." Meanwhile, Hyun had arrived at the primary human research station and was working directly with the most advanced of the Vorthak installations. The ancient technology recognized him instantly as the human who had first made contact with Dayak. "The network is trying to show me something," Hyun reported as he interfaced with systems that were old when human civilization was still learning to use fire. Images of ships unlike anything in our galaxy, massive vessels that seemed to consume entire star systems. The implications were terrifying. If Dak was right about an approaching extragalactic invasion, then the current crisis was just the beginning of something much worse. Far from human space, other civilizations were making their own discoveries about the awakening network. On the peaceful world of the Novan philosophers, ancient installations were providing glimpses of technologies that could heal entire planets. The industrious Keltari traders found systems designed to coordinate resource sharing across galactic distances. But the more aggressive civilizations saw only threats and opportunities for conquest. The Hexari Empire believed that control of the network would give them dominance over all other species. The militant factions within the Altarian Council saw it as a weapon that could be used to impose their version of order on the galaxy. "This is exactly what my people feared would happen," Dak said sadly as he monitored the approaching war fleets from his position in deep space. The ancient dragon had positioned himself directly in the path of the largest Hexari formation. His massive form dwarfed even their largest battleships. "Attention Hexari fleet," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I am Dake of the Vorthak. You will not pass this point. Turn back now or face the consequences." The response was immediate and predictable. Hundreds of plasma cannons opened fire on the ancient dragon. Energy beams that could melt through the armor of any known ship struck Dak's scales and dissipated harmlessly. The dragon had not survived 3,000 years of isolation by being vulnerable to conventional weapons. Your weapons cannot harm me, Dak announced as the futile bombardment continued. But I do not wish to harm you. The network my people left behind is not a threat. It is a gift meant to prepare this galaxy for what is coming. The Hexari fleet commander was not interested in listening. All ships concentrate fire on the creature's eyes. We will bring down this monster and claim its technology for the glory of the Empire. Dak sighed deeply, sending vibrations through space itself. You leave me no choice. What happened next reminded every species in the galaxy why the Vorthak had once been the undisputed rulers of known space. Dak moved with impossible speed for something so massive. His tail swept through the Hexari formation like a cosmic whip, destroying dozens of ships with a single gesture. His claws reached out to disable entire squadrons without killing their crews. Within minutes, the pride of the Hexari Empire was floating helplessly in space. Their ships were intact, but completely powerless. Their weapons were offline, and their engines were dead. I could have destroyed you all, Dak announced to the crippled fleet. But my friend Hyun has taught me that there are better ways to resolve conflicts. You will drift here safely until rescue ships arrive. Perhaps you will use this time to think about whether conquest is truly the path your people should follow. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The creature that every civilization feared had just demonstrated power beyond imagination while showing remarkable restraint. The Hexari Empire's mightiest fleet had been defeated without a single death. But instead of reducing tensions, the battle only made things worse. Other civilizations saw Dake's mercy as weakness and his power as proof that he and his human allies were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. On the capital world of the Alterian Council, emergency sessions were being held around the clock. The elegant blue-skinned beings who had dominated galactic politics for centuries were struggling to understand a situation that challenged all their assumptions. The creature defeated an entire battle fleet without killing anyone, reported their military advisor. This suggests either remarkable restraint or a calculated attempt to appear non-threatening while consolidating power. What of the network that has awakened across the galaxy? Asked the Council Prime. Our scientists report that it is offering unprecedented opportunities for cooperation and coordination. That is precisely what makes it so dangerous, replied the Council's chief strategist. No single species should control such power. The humans claim they want to share it, but history shows that power always corrupts. Similar debates were raging on hundreds of worlds as civilizations struggled to decide how to respond to the crisis. Some species began quietly reaching out to human representatives offering support and alliance. Others mobilized their fleets and prepared for war. The peaceful Novan philosophers sent a delegation to human space with a simple message. We have studied the network on our world, and we believe it represents a new possibility for galactic civilization. We offer our support to humanity in learning to use this gift wisely. The nomadic Ishan explorers made a similar offer. Their ships began arriving in human territory carrying supplies and volunteers to help study the ancient installations. But for every species that offered friendship, 2 others prepared for battle. The galaxy was splitting into factions as ancient fears and ambitions drove civilizations toward the largest conflict in recorded history. General Day found himself commanding not just human forces, but a growing alliance of species that believed cooperation was preferable to conquest. His fleet now included ships from a dozen different worlds, all working together despite their different technologies and cultures. This is what the network was designed for, Hyun observed as he watched. Human engineers working alongside Novan philosophers and Keltari traders. Not just coordination, but actual cooperation between species that have never trusted each other before. Dr. Mina nodded as she monitored the data flowing through the network. The technology is teaching us how to work together by amplifying our natural tendencies toward cooperation while suppressing aggressive impulses. It is literally rewiring how we think about other species. But even as understanding grew among the allied species, the forces of fear and aggression were gathering their strength. The remaining Hexari fleets had regrouped and were coordinating with other militant civilizations. A coalition of the galaxy's most aggressive species was forming with one goal in mind: the complete destruction of humanity and their ancient dragon ally. "War is coming," Admiral Tay announced during a strategic briefing that included representatives from all the allied species. "Our intelligence indicates that at least 15 different civilizations are coordinating attacks on human space and our allies." "Then we must be ready," General Day replied grimly. "But we will not fight this war alone. The network has given us something our enemies do not have: true unity between different species." As fleets mobilized across the galaxy and ancient technologies awakened to their full potential, the stage was set for a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. On one side stood those who believed in cooperation and friendship. On the other were those who saw only threats to be eliminated and power to be claimed. The friendship between one lonely dragon and one curious human had indeed sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Now everyone would discover whether those shockwaves would destroy the old order or create something better in its place. The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core, where ancient stars had burned since the universe was young. Hundreds of ships from 15 different aggressive civilizations faced off against the alliance that had formed around humanity, and their strange friendship with the legendary Void Dragon. General Day commanded the Allied fleet from his flagship, while ships from the Novan philosophers, the Keltari traders, and the Ishan explorers flew alongside human vessels in formations. That should have been impossible. Different species with different technologies working together as if they had trained for centuries. "All Allied ships, this is General Dai," he broadcast across the mixed fleet. "Remember, we are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to defend the right of all species to choose cooperation over fear." The enemy fleet was impressive in its size and coordination. The Hexari Empire had provided the largest contingent of ships, but they were joined by vessels from the militant Altarian factions, several warrior species from the Outer Rim, and mercenary fleets hired by civilizations too cowardly to fight directly. "Attention! Alliance fleet," came the transmission from the enemy commander. "You have aligned yourselves with a cosmic extinction threat and corrupted yourselves with alien technology. Surrender now, and we will show mercy to those who renounce their alliance with the humans." The response came not from General Day, but from Captain Yoon, whose converted cargo vessel now bristled with Vorthak-enhanced systems. "This is the crew of Soul's Dream. We stand with our friends, all of them." As if her words were a signal, the battle erupted across thousands of cubic kilometers of space. Energy weapons lit up the void between stars while missiles and torpedoes streaked between the opposing fleets. But this was unlike any battle in galactic history. The Allied ships moved with perfect coordination, guided by the Vorthak network, that connected their crews in ways that transcended language and culture. Human tactical thinking merged with Novan philosophical wisdom and Keltari engineering expertise to create strategies that no single species could have conceived. The enemy had numbers and firepower, but the Alliance had something far more powerful. "Unity! Incoming missile barrage," reported the tactical officer on General Day's flagship. 200 projectiles targeting our command ships." "All Ishan vessels execute dispersal pattern 7, came the immediate response from the Ishan flight leader. The nomadic explorers, whose ships were built for speed and maneuverability, swept in to intercept the missiles with a grace that made their movements look like an ancient dance. Meanwhile, Hyun worked frantically in the depths of a Vorthak installation that had been transported to the battle zone. The ancient technology was responding to the conflict by revealing capabilities that had remained hidden for millennia. "The network is showing me something," he reported to Dr. Mina, who was coordinating research efforts from a safe distance. Images of the approaching extragalactic threat. They are closer than Dake thought. On the tactical display, massive shapes were approaching from the void between galaxies. Ships the size of moons moving with purpose toward the edge of known space. The invasion force that had driven the Vorthak from their home was finally arriving. How long do we have? Dr. Mina asked with growing urgency. Months, not years, Hyun replied, as more data flowed through the network. Maybe less. The network has been trying to prepare us, but we have been too busy fighting each other to listen. At that moment, something unprecedented happened. Dak's massive form materialized at the center of the battle zone between the two opposing fleets. But he was not alone. Around him, space itself seemed to shimmer as dimensional barriers weakened. People of the galaxy. Dak's voice reached every ship in both fleets. I bring a message from my people who watch from beyond the barriers of this dimension. The fighting slowed, then stopped entirely as beings throughout the battle zone stared at the impossible sight. Through the shimmering barriers around Dake, other shapes were becoming visible. Massive forms that dwarfed even the ancient dragon. The Vorthak had returned. The enemy approaches the edge of our galaxy, announced one of the newly arrived Vorthak in a voice that made stars tremble. Ships that have consumed 12 galaxies before ours. They bring weapons that can unravel the fabric of space itself. The revelation struck both fleets like a physical blow. Every petty conflict and territorial dispute suddenly seemed meaningless in the face of such an overwhelming threat. We fled to another dimension, not from cowardice, but from necessity, continued the ancient being. We needed time to find a species capable of uniting this galaxy against what was coming. A species that could inspire cooperation instead of fear. All eyes turned to the human ships scattered throughout the Allied fleet. The newest species in galactic civilization had somehow become the key to everyone's survival. The network we left behind is not a weapon, Dak explained to the assembled fleets. It is a coordination system designed to unite every species in this galaxy into a single defensive force. But it will only function for those who approach it with friendship, rather than conquest. The enemy fleet commander's voice crackled across the communication channels. More alien lies. We will not be manipulated by creatures that threaten our very existence. Before anyone could respond, space itself convulsed around them. At the edge of sensor range, massive shapes emerged from hyperspace. The extragalactic invasion force had arrived ahead of schedule. All ships, General Day's voice cut through the chaos. New contacts bearing 090 Mark 15, size classification unknown. Energy signatures off the scale. The approaching ships were unlike anything in galactic history. Organic curves merged with crystalline structures to create vessels that seemed to grow rather than be built. They moved through space like living things hunting prey. Those are the Devourers, the Vorthak representative announced with ancient sadness. They consume entire star systems to fuel their expansion. 12 galaxies have fallen before them. Faced with extinction, the enemy fleet's resolve crumbled. One by one, the aggressive civilizations that had come to destroy humanity began requesting permission to join the Alliance network. This is Hexari Fleet Command, came the transmission that changed everything. We request access to the coordination network. Our empire offers its full military might to the defense of the galaxy. Similar messages flooded the communication channels. As species that had been enemies minutes before realized they faced a threat that made their conflicts seem like children arguing over toys. The network will accept all who approach it with genuine intent to cooperate, Hyun announced as he worked to expand the system's capacity. But it can detect deception. Those who seek only to use others for their own advantage will find themselves excluded. As the extragalactic ships drew closer, the makeshift alliance grew stronger. The Vorthak network linked minds across species barriers, allowing unprecedented levels of coordination. Human creativity merged with alien technologies to create defensive strategies that no single civilization could have conceived. They're targeting the galactic core, reported the Novan observation ships whose philosophical training had taught them to see patterns others missed. They want to destabilize our entire galaxy. Then we stop them there, General Day declared. All ships form up on the human fleet. We're going to make a stand. But the real turning point came when Ambassador Nari's diplomatic skills proved as valuable as any weapon. Using the network's communication abilities, she reached out to neutral species throughout the galaxy. "This is Ambassador Nari of Earth," she broadcast to every inhabited world. "The choice before us is simple. We can remain divided and face extinction, or we can unite and face the future together." The response was overwhelming. Species that had never cooperated before began sharing resources and technology. The network amplified their natural tendencies towards survival and cooperation while filtering out the fear and aggression that had kept them apart. Reading massive energy buildup from all Vorthak installations, Dr. Mina reported as the network reached full activation. The system is coming online across the entire galaxy. When the Devourers finally engaged the Allied forces, they found something they had never encountered before. Not just another collection of frightened civilizations fighting for survival, but a truly united galaxy working as one organism. "Their coordination is perfect," observed the lead Devourer ship. "We cannot isolate and consume individual systems. They defend each other with complete unity." The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The extragalactic invaders had never faced resistance from an entire galaxy acting as one. Their consumption tactics were useless against opponents who shared resources instantly and coordinated defenses across impossible distances. "They're retreating," Captain Yoon announced with amazement. "The invasion force is withdrawing beyond the galactic rim. In the aftermath of victory, the galaxy found itself fundamentally changed. The network that had united them against extinction remained active, binding former enemies into a new kind of civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. The age of isolated species fighting for dominance is over," Dak announced, as he prepared to return to his dimensional home with his people. "The galaxy now has what it needs to face any threat: unity,